Good morning, everyone. So a bit of context around who is Robert Walters and why is it interesting to you. So we are one of the world's leading global specialist recruiters. What we mean by that is we recruit based on skill. We don't recruit based on industry. We don't recruit based on general recruitment, like Deco, for example, a generalist recruiter. Who here has dealt with a recruiter before? Like pretty much everyone. Who's had a good experience with a recruiter? Well, yes, for your current job. Who had a bad experience? Well, for all the other jobs you applied for and didn't get. So we're a really interesting business from that perspective. What are our big challenges? And sorry, we've got 3 different brands, actually, and that's important when I look at marketing automation. We've got Robert Walters, which is this very kind of traditional recruitment business. We've got Walters People, which is young people recruitment, so graduates. Again, it's a different business model, different challenge, different technology integrations. And we've got Resource Solutions, which is a very traditional B2B model of one product to one type of client, again, requiring a different approach. Challenges, so engagement. I'll talk more about that in a second. We've got reporting and engaging different business models. Again, very challenging from a digital perspective. And we've got digital adoption in marketing and sales. Sales for us is recruiters. Recruiters can vary from some guy girl who's 21, straight out of university and wants a job, and we're going to give them a ton of beer on a Friday night, and they really enjoy their job. And some of our marketing people, we don't have people with 15, 20 years worth of experience in marketing. We have many people with it's their first job, so we have to provide them with the appropriate skills. Tools, not skills, because they don't have skills. So, human engagement challenge. So, this is really popular within our business because we're all about people. And our business understand that becoming closer to customers, closer to candidates is of key importance because, the technology world is changing. One of my favorite quotes is actually this one by a guy called Rand Fishkin. I don't know how many of you will have heard of him. He's a kind of SEO expert. He's been around for kind of 10 years since I started doing SEO. And one of his things is he looked at how much engagement and how much ROI people are getting from Facebook. And that stat kind of took me by surprise because it's like 1,000 likes. Well, hang on. Companies go mad when they're like, I've got 35,000 likes on my Facebook page. That stat kind of says that's worth 35 email addresses in your database. And how many people care about 35 email addresses? We don't. So why did we have to build this? We had to engage our clients and candidates. And what are our problems? So we had a ton of legacy systems. We had a ton of legacy data. We have 10, 20 million CVs lying around the place. There is a ton of data, and it's a really diverse landscape. Wasn't going to be one platform that solved all of our solutions. It doesn't work that way. When I say one platform, we're a global business. We have people turning around at all hours of the day and saying, hey, can I plug in Performix because the local MD's recruited somebody from that company, developed a relationship and said, yeah, we should use this system. Christ, how do I plug that into my technology stack? China, there's tons of different things there that pop up and say, well, hang on, that is unique to China. It's not going to be in use anywhere else. Finland, right? It's a pretty small business, but again, it's got its own unique problems. It's got its own unique technologies. And again, that local MD could well be turning around to their local marketer and saying, I want to plug into this, I want to plug into this. As a recruitment business, we're very familiar with this from the perspective of job boards, because again, certain things exist in the US, in China, or in Finland. We have to work out, well, hang on, how are we going to plug all this together? The German technology landscape, God, it's a dozen more platforms. Yay, the UK technology landscape. But again, we have to plug in all of these different things. And I'm sure I can see momentum up here somewhere if I had better eyesight, but I don't. But yeah, momentum's up there, right? And again, we chose that platform. Is that a global platform, though? Do we have to maybe look at something else in another market? Maybe. Don't know. So That's kind of the situation I walked into about a year ago when I joined Robert Walters. And they said, well, we've got marketing technology, we've got this system, we've got this system. And I sat there and looked at it and was like, well, great, okay, how do you actually work out your ROI? And they turned around and said, oh, it's great idea. We're going to go buy a new tool. And the new tool was the same price as the entire technology stack combined. And then actually, funnily enough, I spoke to somebody using that tool, and they said, well, yeah, but we had to go hire a data scientist who had to build a new visualization layer. And I was just like, well, okay, that doesn't solve any of my problems or any of my business challenges. This is one of my challenges, okay? The number of apps per employee in a company starts growing and growing and growing, right? For an average enterprise company, most of us are probably fairly enterprise, right? So it's like 10 apps per person, 200 apps in your company. One of the interesting stats is how many times people are switching from one system to another system to another system. Even when you look at HR and you're like, because again, none of us are in HR, so we can kind of badmouth them a little bit. And we say, oh, how do you do your expenses? I have to do expenses on paper, or I've got a booking system. Oh, travel, I have to go to the travel agency, and holidays, well, that's a different system. So all of a sudden, you're talking 10 different systems, 10 different things, routes you have to memorize, and extra efficiencies or extra inefficiency, shall I say, is added on top of that. So barriers to success, this is by a US technology firm, integrating disparate systems. That is the most challenging barrier, right? So when we say, okay, look, it's really important for me to understand ROI, well, in order to get there, I have to integrate everything. I have to say, how's this piece of data getting from here to here? Unless I go and hire my local marketing reporting person like you did, and that sort of becomes a full-time role. So, technology stack. Do I have a cool diagram? No. But I can tell you all of these things do. So, one of the kind of important things when I start talking about a technology spine is, much like the human system, there is the spine, but then off the spine come the ribs, come the nervous system, all these different parts. And, we're quite lucky. We've got Adobe Experience Manager as our CMS. We went and bought Marketo recently. All of this actually is fairly recent. I spent a ton of money. We went and bought Cvent. Don't tell my CFO. Actually, he signed the check, so he's okay. We went and bought Cvent for our event management system. Again, recruiters, we love to run events. We're hiring out the V&A for the Dior exhibit. 800 people are turning up. What's the ROI of that? No idea. So Cvent, really important so we can start to understand who's turned up to the event, who's registered, what's the ROI, what is the actual interaction point of that. Momentum, again, Marketo, we all are familiar with these marketing automation tools becoming increasingly complex. If I've got a 21-year-old graduate in France trying to send an email, I don't really want to push them through a year-long training course. And so Momentum was a huge part of that question to say, well, actually, it's pretty much like MailChimp for Marketo, and they can use it, send out an invite to 500 finance managers, except it's powered by Marketo. So I get all the benefits, the reporting, the automation, everything else. Power BI, we're still in our early days with that. But again, how do we get all of these disparate systems and start to do reporting? Some interesting discussions with our data warehouse team, where they say, I'm collecting all of this data. Great. Yeah, what use is that? You're just creating a massive database. You actually need to use this data for something. Showpad, so when our salespeople go and present content to people, we understand what's being used, how it's being used in the sales cycle. Dynamics 365 is one of our CRMs. So again, how do we start measuring ROI and understanding what people are doing? Reich, strangely enough, yes, that is part of our technology stack because it is efficiency. How does marketing become a more efficient function? Previous to now, it was like, how much time do we spend maintaining marketing automation? No idea. Now we actually have a number that we can report on. So, a bit about data and recruiters. Luckily, I don't work for Korn Ferry anymore, so I can put that photo up there. So data is the lifeblood of recruitment firms. Okay, it's all based on your black book of candidates and clients, particularly candidates. Okay, so the big risks when I start talking about data inside our firm is they say, you're sticking all of our information in one system. Or what if somebody steals it? What if somebody breaks into it? We're going to lose our business to other search firms. GDPR, Christ, I had to mention it. People start saying, if we're tracking all these people, we get massive problems. Collecting data, which of our recruiters wants to fill in data? None of them. Luckily, because they're quite junior recruiters, we just say we don't pay them unless they fill in data, so that's easier. And that poor gentleman is in Wired Magazine's most controversial hacking cases of the past decade because he used to work for Korn Ferry. He allegedly stole some data, went to another search firm, started it up, and they took him to court. And it's part of how kind of the hacking regulations are worked out in America. So they're really litigious about this stuff. Luckily, we learned from Korn Ferry's here, so we're okay. How does the culture pip start to make sense to us? So this was kind of a slide that I presented to our board and said, this is what I actually need to change, right? I can't just go off and buy all those platforms because, great, got a bunch of new platforms. I also need to change the processes. And the processes, they're across IT, they're across marketing, they're across sales, recruiters. And we also need to change the people. So there's a cultural change, there's talent change, talent shortages. And in the middle of that is data and integrations, because data powers all of these things. Integrations is kind of the result of, hey, you know what, I've got this bit of data, but as your data integration becomes more and more complex, you start talking really integration and how integration is driving efficiencies and improvements in your platforms, your processes, and your people. How's our journey going? People, we had a huge talent challenge. Okay, we had junior marketers. We didn't have enough digital specialists. Where are we going with that? Well, rather than just increasing my headcount costs, I'm just reducing the barrier to adoption. Rather than hiring 30 Marketo specialists, which is pretty much unachievable in London, unless I clone Emily there. I just had to reduce barriers to adoption. So again, momentum became a key part of answering that challenge. Okay, manual work. For events, because we didn't have an event management system, marketers quite literally were spending 4 days a month counting up who turned up to the event and telling people in the organization, cutting out badges, things like that. So all of a sudden, my ROI of my Cvent platform becomes around the data and saying, actually, I understand who's turned up to the event within minutes of the event taking place, and my ROI is based on how much does a marketer cost for 4 days. Well, I've just returned those 4 days back to you. That's a really easy argument to make to your CFO. Platforms. So again, siloed systems. Here's CRM. Here's our email system. Do they talk? No. How easy is data to get across? Impossible. All of a sudden, I'm building platforms with integrations at the core. I'm not buying something unless it fits your integration model, right? Again, no core system. Well, you know what? Adobe is the core to our technology stack. Microsoft is the core to our IT stack. I'll come on to that later as well. So we start to say we've got a spine, and then the ecosystem, we start saying, well, something has to integrate with Marketo, either by design or we do some development work that's agreed with that company. Processes, again, if you've got siloed data, if you've got siloed processes, you cannot understand true ROI. More importantly, we're now moving towards business insights because we start building these dashboards to say, okay, right, where is the funnel? How is the business doing? Do we need more people at the top of the funnel, the middle of the funnel, the last point in the funnel? How is sales doing? Sales is a bore unto itself sometimes, but we can start to put structure around that. Multiple processes. Again, 50 different people sending 50 different invites with no idea who's invited what. Suddenly we start moving towards simplified efficiency of action with programs running in Marketo that actually just sit there and constantly run. I think I'm going to run out of time on this. I'm going to finish it super quick. Market onboarding from a data perspective. So what's your minimum viable product on data? Because again, we hold 20 million CVs. We've got people going like, yeah, we need to be looking at AI and parsing CVs and pulling out all of this information. That's great for startups who go on about AI. In reality, I'd rather have consistent information on 3 or 4 fields that I can then automate across an entire organization, because that will deliver revenue, than AI that's semi-functional. Okay. Moving to start with a self-completing data set. So again, we don't necessarily have accurate data going back 10 years. But if we start saying that everyone who wants to turn up to the Dior event has to fill in 4 or 5 fields, well, guess what? They actually fill in these 4 or 5 fields because they get free wine and to look around a nice museum. Gradually building data normalization and segmentation. So again, classic things like if somebody's email address ends in .fr, well, if their country field's not filled in, let's put in third countries France. So all of a sudden you start to understand where your database is, whereas again, historically it's like, I've got 10 million email addresses and that's it. I've got no other information on this. Manual data importation of the basics. Again, don't be scared of manual data handling, right? At a certain level it's necessary and it's okay. Manual ROI reporting, again, at a certain level, it is okay. It's a good place to start with, to prove to your business, to start to understand what the numbers are so you can adjust that model. If you jump in straight away to we've automated everything and we've fully integrated everything, it's actually quite difficult to dismantle it. And so when you're doing this all from scratch, sometimes it's easier to do it a little bit gradually. Because again, learn from your data and learn how to best track your ROI. Do you need further systems? One of the things we've already identified is a platform called SiftRock, which we're going to go off and get, and it looks at your bounce backs and it starts to pull information from your bounce backs to say, so-and-so's left, so-and-so's sent a human reply, all of this, because we don't monitor any of that stuff. Account-based marketing. So again, a big thing for us is account-based marketing for our resource solutions side of the business. Salespeople, they're terrified of this, right? Because they basically think you're stealing their jobs. They think you're going to lose their clients and all of this. So really easy to turn around to them and say, look, all we want to do is listen. We just want to listen to what's going on. We just want to see what's going on. And we want to set out a structure by which we can understand what's going on. I mean, this is music to the board's ears because they just say, you're going to be able to tell me what's going wrong in this business? Fantastic. Go ahead and do it. Sales are like, you know what? You're not interfering, so I'm okay with this. And we can start to engage them. We can start to show them where this is going to help them. And so, start listening, start integrating your key tools, tier your existing clients and prospects. This was an interesting one. When we told the salespeople we wanted to do this, they started to get a bit offended because they're like, what do you mean? We've got a sales strategy. Do you have a document? No. But it's in their heads. Like they understand this kind of concept. It's just how do you move it into a paper format? How do you move that into a digital format? And then just pick a few key existing clients, a few key prospects, and you just say, look, we're going to gradually try this. Why? Because if you're a £500 million business and you say you can move the needle 1%, well, that covers quite a lot of your budget. And it's possible because they aren't doing a lot of this stuff at the moment. I mentioned Microsoft, long-term data vision, why I'm building all these things in a certain way. This is a possibility of kind of long-term data vision with platforms like Microsoft and Adobe by extension Marketo. When I think long-term data, I think de-risking, right? With GDPR, with security breaches, closed-loop reporting, closed-loop data systems is the way to go. I don't want anyone manually importing stuff. I don't want anyone able to export anything in Excel or CSV format. Why? Because that's how security breaches, GDPR problems happen. If I can make sure that all my systems are consistently communicating to each other, happy days. AI opportunities. Well, we know in recruitment that AI has a huge part to play in what we're doing. AI relies on greater data sets, greater data accuracy. How do we get there? And digital transformation. So how do you move from this very binary kind of like, here's my data, yes, no, to starting talking about transformation, integrations, efficiencies, and all of this? Open Data Initiative was announced, I think, September last year by Adobe, Microsoft, and SAP. And what they're really saying is that they want to enable all of their key systems to be able to push into a one data model based on the Microsoft Azure data warehouse kind of data lake area. And what that means is that if I've got Marketo sat within my Adobe area, I connect all my lovely marketing tools to Marketo. That's my consistency there. And then rather than copying across a data field via CRM integration that constantly breaks and all of this into Microsoft Dynamics, and I'm not even using it in Microsoft Dynamics, I'm getting it there just so I can use it in a follow-on system in SAP or something else. All of a sudden you start saying, actually, I'm just going to push this into the Microsoft data warehouse, keep it there, and then if I want to use it in another system, I pull it from there. And that is a more consistent data set model. And so that's a really interesting possibility of long-term vision. So what have I learned in the last 9 months? Number one, plan out your tech stack. Make it convincing. Understand what the core components you're going to invest in. Plan out your data model. So understand where your data sits, what you're going to use, how you're going to use it. Your people model. Figure out what are the right skill sets you're going to invest in. Think about that tech stack that you're going to invest in. Does it have the engineers, the people you need to physically use it available? Does it have experts like, marketing agencies that you can work with? Does it have a community? Does it have an engaging community that you can go out there and ask questions? Your technology is only as good as your people. That's the kind of management consultancy part for me. And then process model. Figure out how all of these things are going to work and interact with your processes. Engage your stakeholders in that, because otherwise you may well find that you start replicating processes or kind of replacing processes that the business considers critical. When you're convincing around all of those things, it's, I found it remarkably easy to pitch to our board and say, look, I need X million, because they could clearly see what the ROI was, what the process was, and they didn't really have any concerns on this. They just said, yeah, go ahead. Oh, there we are, done. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.